Are you planning the music for your wedding? My guest will help you avoid some common and costly mistakes. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Weddings with Zita. Here's your host and producer, Zita Christian.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Zita Christian, and my guest tonight has a lot of information to share with you. His name is Bob Adamowicz, and he is not just a DJ, he is a DJ plus. So first, Bob, thanks for being on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having
me. I really
me.
appreciate it. So I wanted to talk with you tonight so we could get some information to help those couples in the audience know what they should ask, know what they should look for, know what is possible, and maybe avoid some common and costly mistakes as they're planning the music for their wedding.
Sure.
I think one of the first things to get across, the thing that surprised me the most when I met you, is you are hardly the one person operation. You are a one-stop operation. You can get everything, but you are not one person. You have multiple employees. So tell me a little bit, just so we get a basis about your business, like how long have you been in business and how many people you have working for you?
Sure. I started this when I was in 1986 when I was 14. About 20 years ago, started this full time, and at that point started to hire people to work for me. And the people that I hired had little experience or no experience at all, and took them under my wing and trained them to make sure they did things the way that I'd like things to be done, to make things very cohesive for everyone to work together.
So how many weddings do you cover, like your whole company? How many do you cover a year, about?
Approximately 250 weddings a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a lot of weddings.
It's a lot of weddings.
So in terms of staff, how many people do you have working for you to cover all of this?
So we have more than 20 DJs on our staff, and then we have other subcontractors that take care of other things that if we need, as far as setup or breakdown, and sometimes for things in the office and stuff like that.
You know, Bob, it's not at all what sometimes people think about. Oh, well, I'll have somebody come in and, you see like in the old movies from the 50s, and somebody just, play some records.
Right.
It's not like that anymore, is
no,
it? Not at all. So obviously, I know too from my own experience at weddings, not all DJs are the same.
Right.
One of the first things that I find when I'm speaking with couples, because I always ask them, who do you have, for some of the other wedding vendors? So, because sometimes I know people, sometimes I don't, and that always helps me. How would you describe the style of the way your company operates? Because sometimes I find some DJs will say, well, we're, if you want to have a lot of fun, if it's, wacky, crazy, or if you want classy, or where do you fall in that category?
More to the classier side. The people that I hired, I really want them to be fun, energetic, but tasteful, not tacky or cheesy. So when clients call and ask, I tell them that pretty much any one of my staff, you're going to get that very classy kind of person, but at the same time, we all have different personalities, and this is why I like our clients to meet with them before they make any decisions. They do an in-home consultation, get to really know their personality, because we want to make sure they click with them before they spend money and hire them for one of their biggest days of their life.
That's really important. There's an awful lot that goes into it, and I know I'm always mindful of the fact that, when it comes to the wedding, there's not a rewind. You don't get the do-over.
No, not at all.
You want everything to be right, which leads me to one of the big questions I want to ask you, and let's put it right up there up front. I want to talk about the things that can go wrong.
Right.
So in terms of the services of the DJ, tell me the kind of things that can go wrong. And I don't mean this to scare anybody. I just think that you need to know
definitely.
That you can be aware of these things. And what do you do? What does your company do to prevent or at least mitigate those things?
I mean, what we do, and then there's what the bride and groom should do before they hire somebody, but what we do is we make sure we always have backup people on call. Because though you hire a specific person, accidents can happen, people can get sick, and you don't want that dreaded phone call, the night before your wedding that someone's not going to show up. So for us as a company, we always have backup people on call. The backup people are only our best DJs, so we give each person a couple nights off a month on a weekend. Hopefully they don't need to be the backup person, but they're there in case they need it. The other thing is backup equipment, very important, especially nowadays where everything's in the digital age and people are using laptops.
Yeah.
I've seen so much over the years where a laptop will freeze up, shut down, and you need to ask that DJ, what do they have for backup? Do they have a second laptop? Are they bringing CDs with them? Do they have an iPod so at least they can continue playing the music while they reboot their computer up?
Are you saying that people might actually come with 2 laptops, 2 computers?
If they're smart. I mean, this is a very important day, and like you said, they only get one chance to make this day right. So, absolutely.
So-
yes, we do.
So you do. You bring
Absolutely.
2 laptops and you bring CDs
Absolutely, yeah,
and an iPod.
absolutely.
Bob, you're good.
Yeah.
You're very, very good.
And the other thing, too, is, when they're hiring somebody, they really should check references. I mean, Wedding Wire is obviously a great place to check, but ask the person for references because you cannot ask that person to go poke your head in at someone else's private affair. And so
Yes.
how do you know that person is any good? We have you meet with our people, but by talking to other past wedding clients that have given permission on a reference sheet, that's how we do it, and at least they can get a good idea and also see the places that we played and know that if there's somewhere that you're hiring that DJ and they've played at the same place that you want to hire them for, it makes it even better because at least you know that that DJ knows the layout of the event site.
And that's important.
Yeah.
That's an important thing for the sound. In fact, speaking of the places, are there things that can go wrong? Let's say that you're providing a service in a place that has a caterer.
Right.
Anything that, because I think for me, I think about not that I don't usually stay, but I have been told that sometimes timing issues
Right.
pop
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. When you're hiring a DJ and if you have you're renting a facility out, and then you're also hiring a caterer. Majority of caterers are not a wedding coordinator. They're not going to let you know when to do anything except for when dinner is ready. So it's very important to the DJ that you hire really knows the ins and outs, will coordinate with the facility manager or the caterer, the photographer, really is kind of like your personal coordinator. That way you don't have to worry about when you're lining people up or if you've hired us for the ceremony to make sure that everything is in the proper order.
So you do a considerable amount of the work that ordinarily a
Absolutely.
coordinator would do. I
Absolutely.
think sometimes couples don't realize that they need somebody to,
Oh, yeah.
to do those
Yeah.
things.
Yep.
It doesn't happen. In the best of all worlds, it looks seamless.
Right.
It appears effortless.
And
but it's
sometimes
not.
people say, well, I'm going to use a family member.
Yes.
But unless the family member has experience, they really don't know what's best for the bride and groom. They don't know there is a certain flow to the day, and sometimes things have to be changed up at the last moment to make the day work.
You're right. You're absolutely right. One of the questions that I particularly wanted to talk with you about, because, as an officiant, I go to the ceremony and I have my own sound system. I bring my own sound system. And a lot of times I'll just leave it in the car because I don't want to step on the toes of the DJ who has a system, or if it's a venue who has an in-house system.
Right.
I always defer to them. But what is your experience in dealing with an officiant with or without sound?
Yeah, 90% of them don't have a sound system.
That many?
So they expect the DJ to have it, or sometimes they'll show up and the bride and groom haven't hired the DJ for that additional time to play that, and therefore you have guests that are sitting in your audience, as you know, that can't hear the exchangement of vows, and that's very
Yeah.
important. You don't invite people to your ceremony and they cannot hear it. Obviously, that's not a good thing. So we always try to ask our clients if the ceremony is going to be held on the same premises. Have they thought about a ceremony system? Does the officiant have one with them? And if not, these are the reasons why you should have it. Not only music, but we're there to help coordinate everything, and of course, to making sure everyone can hear the exchangement of vows.
Well, and in the ceremonies that I do, I tell the couple's love story as part of the ceremony.
I've seen
And
that, yeah.
I want people to
yeah,
people to
'cause
hear
it's true.
that.
It's very, yeah,
So
it's very personal.
Yeah, that's
it's very nice.
that's an important piece from
Yeah.
from my perspective. Speaking of music for the ceremony, I think back to when Dick and I got married, and I think so many things have changed. Is there anything that you would point to say is classic, anything trendy, like in terms of the ceremony music?
Yeah, classic, unless you're talking about the old Here Comes the Bride, it's, I'd say 95% of people don't ever play that anymore. So the newer stuff that's out now, the Piano Guys or Vitamin String Quartet has a lot of great instrumentals of new songs, but to classical instruments, which become very popular, like Marry Me by Train, that's a popular one.
Yes.
And of course, for the bride to walk down to, probably the biggest song this year and last year was 1,000 Years by Vanessa Carlton, which is just a fantastic song.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And then Walking Away, if they're walking away, you could do a fun Stevie Wonder, Signed, Sealed, Delivered, or even Bruno Mars, Marry You, which is a lot of fun and says nice energy to it.
And I've seen some Beatles songs, Here Comes the Sun, or any number of things.
Yep.
I've also had couples where in the processional music, because couples are unique. Yes, people have been getting married, all over the world, but it's still this couple and their choice and how they want their ceremony, and so that it is personal and unique to them. I had one bride who walked down the aisle to Dog Days Are Over. Everyone knew her sense of humor and loved it. I mean, it was so perfect for them. I had another couple just recently, very soft country music, instrumental, as she was coming down a hill, walking, towards the groom, and at a certain point she turned a corner and headed down the aisle, and suddenly the music changed to the theme from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah. Well, the guests just went crazy because it was so her. Yeah. It was so, it typified, her personality. So I think one of the things that I see from all this is that there is no right or wrong. It's a matter of what is it that the couple wants.
Over the past 20 years of doing this, I've seen from people being just very traditional, and now in this generation, they really want to be different. They go to a lot of weddings, and they want their wedding to stand out. Sometimes that's a good thing. They have some good ideas, and sometimes they have not so good ideas for what they want for their day, and it just doesn't, it's not seamless, and it just doesn't flow right. Yeah,
that can happen. In fact, one of the things that I did want to ask you about in terms of the music, not necessarily inappropriate, but just not effective, that doesn't achieve what the couple wants, and that has to do with the length of a song, that sometimes it's too long or sometimes too short.
Right.
Give me a couple examples of where it might be one of
So maybe not working so much, but you have to understand that if a bride and groom are going to have music as they walk down the aisle, they definitely, during their rehearsal dinner, they should practice with that particular song, even if it's just on their iPhone, and play it to ensure that there's enough of time. Because the last thing you want is for the wedding party to walk down and it takes too long, and then the DJ has to restart the song again and there's a pause. So if you find there's a song that you really like and it's not long enough, a good DJ can extend that song and make that work. The other thing is that you see a lot of times during a sand ceremony or a candle ceremony that they play the song for the bride and groom to do the sand, and they want the whole entire song to play, and the ceremony's over and everyone's sitting there twiddling their thumbs for 2 or 3 minutes until the song is over. So I think that you don't need the whole song, that the DJ could easily fade out at a certain point so it seems natural, and that way you can get back to the ceremony.
And it still has the flavor of that particular piece of music, but it's not a concert. It's a wedding, and I think that is something people
and quite
need to
frankly,
keep in
nobody
mind.
wants to sit there and listen to the entire song.
No, they
and
don't.
I watch people's faces because I'm in the audience, and I can see how people are reacting.
Yes. The popular music or classical music, traditional music, one of the ones that I hear often, and I love it, I have it in several versions myself, on CDs, Pachelbel's Canon.
Right.
I just think it's beautiful.
Yes.
But I have heard people say, oh no, I don't want to hear it again.
Right.
But if it's your wedding and that beautiful piece of music is playing and it means something to you, then that's appropriate. So why, from your perspective, because I'm sure you've heard it a lot, why do you think it's so popular?
I think it's become the traditional. We've gotten away from Here Comes the Bride because that was your their grandparents or parents' song to walk down to. I think it's been in a lot of movies that have weddings in them, so
Yeah.
it strikes a chord with people. It's a beautiful song, and it's long. It's 7 minutes long, so
Yeah.
you can get your entire wedding party down to it, and the bride, and it's just a very pretty
And then you
song.
can fade down, as
Right,
appropriate.
right. And again, it's just
something like
classic.
that.
You can't go wrong with it. It's like a Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World,
Very
for,
true.
for a mother or son to dance to. I mean, who's going to turn their nose up at that?
Yeah, exactly. Very true. And speaking of things like that, the traditional dances. So you have the first dance. You have a parents
Right.
dance. You have the various combinations. I know from some conversations we've had that you have some feelings about when the couple should have their first dance.
Right.
Talk to me about that.
So I always tell my couples that your first dance really should come as you're introduced into the room. And a few reasons for that is everyone's attention is on you. I always look at the groom and tell him, you're not going to look any better that night and that point. So those pictures are super important. Number two, out of respect, guests will not start dancing until the two of you have danced. So if you hold up
yes.
for your first dance after dinner, and bride and grooms normally go from table to table, that can stop the party because the guests aren't going to dance until they've had that dance. So I always suggest that in the beginning.
That's a good point. Obviously the courtesy element to it, but I love your comment about, chances are you're not going to look better
Because the groom's
during
going to
the
want to
evening than
loosen
just
up.
at this
It could be a
moment.
hot day, and
Yes, take that
the guys
tie
are in the
off,
suits
get the
and
jacket.
yeah. So
Yeah.
those pictures are super important.
Those are really good. And then what about the other songs? Where you have like a father-daughter dance, a mother-son dance.
Right.
Do you have any recommendations for those? Or you do them all at once? Or?
Yeah, I wouldn't do them all at once because you have
Okay.
to think about the people in your audience, that you don't want them sitting there through 3 slow songs watching you guys dance. So
And they're probably not going to do the twist or something. Or
right. Well, sometimes you'll have a bride and her father that'll come up with a silly dance, or they'll
Yeah.
cut way through. But generally speaking, if you have a sit-down service during a dinner course, it's great to do parent dances because people are sitting waiting for the next course, and you have the time to take care of it. And it's one less thing you have to worry about after dinner, and you get those shots out of the way, and that gives you more dance time afterwards.
Oh, good idea. That's a very good idea.
And also, I should mention too that don't pick a song because, or not pick a song because it's too long. Any good DJ can fade out a song and cut the song shorter. So I've had a lot of people that say, well, I don't want to pick this because it's too long of a song. So should never have to worry about that.
Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Have you ever been in a situation where you think you've come totally prepared, you have your CDs as your backup and everything, and you find at the last minute you have to download something, some last minute request?
Yeah, only because the bride will come up or the family member and say, hey, this is really important, and the bride forgot to tell me. It happens. Nowadays, with all the technology we have, we can generally go online and grab something, whether it's on iTunes, and pay for it automatically and have it within seconds. And so, yeah, nowadays the technology is fantastic.
But let me get to that technology for a minute, because one of the things I wanted to talk about was when a do-it-yourself, a DIY couple is looking to save on their budget, to cut expenses, I think sometimes they're saying, well, I'll just download music on my phone and play it through a little speaker system.
Right.
What are the advantage is that they can save some money, but what are the disadvantages for something like that?
Well, a lot of people don't think about costs. I mean, costs, unless you have a huge collection of music, most people hire a professional DJ because they're not playing for themselves, they're playing for the crowd. They're watching what's going on.
Right.
A lot of times couples will give me a list of music and you can tell it's just catered towards them and not thinking about the rest of the family. So if they're going to set this up on an iPod, the iPod most certainly can't read a crowd and know when to change up the song, especially if they want people to dance. If you're having a do-it-yourself wedding and it's a backyard event and you don't care about anyone dancing, then I think that's the way to go. But if you're looking for someone, if you're looking for your guests to have a great time and dance, you really need to hire a professional that can read the crowd, know when to change things up, and make sure that everyone's having a great time.
If you're just watching the show, this is Weddings with Zita, and my guest is Bob Adamowicz, and he has a fantastic business with a lot of DJs you send all over New England, and you've seen a lot of things that I would think.
I call them Jerry Springer moments. I've seen everything.
Thank you. I was thinking, how am I going to phrase that? Yes, the Jerry Springer moment. So one of the things that I do want to get into is it is a public access show, so we can't get into like specifically to money. I don't want to get there. However, when a couple says to you, well, I found someone who will do all of the service for $500 or something like that, what kind of red flag goes up? Because I know that there have to be red flags.
Yeah. I mean, it's beware of, if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
But why? Why is that? Why would that set up alarms?
If you really care about your wedding and you're looking for it to be perfect, some people don't care. Some people just feel obligated to make their family happy, which is understandable, and they don't want to spend the money, which is fine. But if you're really looking, you're spending all this money on a beautiful facility, and you're spending, $15,000, $20,000 on food. The person for $500, there's no way they can charge that and be a professional.
How do you know?
Well, because it's someone, if you've been in business for a long time and you have a lot of experience, like any job, your prices have to go up with more experience. It's just nature.
So, like, what are you covering? What expenses are you covering that someone else who just says, hey, I can come in and
So a professional DJ is, first off, not going to steal their music. They're going to buy it. Even if you buy music from the store, you're not legally allowed to play it at a facility and make money from it. So you have to belong to different services like ASCAP and BMI, which allows you legally to play it and profit from it. The second thing is that insurance. Most really great banquet facilities ask the DJs for insurance.
Yes.
So that way, if we come in the door and we bang up some woodwork, the client is not responsible. So it's very important that the DJ has insurance. Put all these things together, raises the cost of doing business, which
But
means
you're getting a pro.
Right, pro, and then making sure that you're going to get someone that's going to show up. Someone for $500, I can guarantee, probably does not have a backup person or backup equipment, because they can't afford to do that for that little amount of money.
They're not coming in with 2 laptops and CDs, and and it makes a difference.
Right.
Another thing that I don't know whether or not it makes a difference. I have my own personal feelings about it, but that is age.
Right.
I mean, as an officiant, and this is great for anybody out there thinking about an encore career, because the older I get, the more I'm perceived as being wise.
Right.
And it's like, oh yes, let's get the old lady to come in and do the ceremony. I had a colleague, a very competent colleague, who told us in a professional meeting, the couple loved her on the phone and met in person, and they said to her, we just love you, but you're too young, and it feels weird to be married by someone so young. So how does age factor? Is it a factor at all in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, when I talk to people on the phone or I get an email, I have no idea how old they are. Okay, I really can't ask that question. I remember when I first started doing this in my early 20s, and sometimes I would show up and the couple would be 40 or 50 years old, and I'm sure they looked at me and said, and I'm sure I didn't get a lot of those jobs because I just didn't look like I was old enough or had the experience.
Yeah, you were the kid.
Now, I think, to be honest, in the mid-30s, up to 50 years old is probably the prime amount for a DJ for a wedding, because you're not too young, you're not too old. You have a lot of years of experience as far as knowing a lot of different kinds of music. So I really think that's such an important thing. And it also depends on how old you look as well. Some people look a little younger as they're older. So, yep.
That's very true. So what will you do, let's say, 20 years from now?
20 years from now, I would still be running my business. I think that I would get more into wedding planning, just having so many contacts over the years. And just gain wealth of knowledge over the years. So I think that would be the next step, besides still training and running my business.
Well, and you've already seen it from so many different sides. I think that would be a really good advantage. Here in New England, we have a limited wedding season. So how far in advance should a couple book your services?
Right. Well, first off, how long do they get engaged? I mean, some people get engaged a year, 2 years, and some less. I find that a year is the general rule of thumb to 9 months. 9 months the minimum, especially if you're going to get married, what we call our peak seasons, which is April, May, and June. And then you have September and October. Those seem to be the most busiest times of year for weddings, because you're also going up against other important functions during that time, whether it's bar and bat mitzvahs or proms, especially during April, May, and June. So you're going to find that facilities are going to book up quicker,
Yeah.
DJs are going to be book up quicker. During those months, you're going to find that you're going to spend more money versus if you're trying to keep costs down. You can go with an off-peak time like a January or February and save yourself a lot, but then you're keeping your fingers crossed, hoping a nor'easter doesn't happen.
Yeah, no kidding, no kidding. I want to touch lightly on two things that I find in the DJ business, from my perspective, from back in years and years and years ago when Dick and I got married, the whole idea of the photo booth and the lighting.
Right.
So talk to me a little bit first about the lighting.
Yep.
What's the advantage of adding lighting into what you can do for a couple?
The big thing is if you look up at pictures of it, of a room without lighting and with the lighting, it definitely can make the room pop, especially if the room has a lot of beautiful architecture like pillars.
Oh,
and
yeah.
the uplighting would be placed around the perimeter of the room. The DJ can program the lights to coordinate with any colors of your linens or the girls' dresses.
Yeah.
And
What about the monogram, the couple's monogram?
Yep. The monogram is, I think, is nice if they have the budget. That can be shown on the wall or the floor. It's very simple, but it kind of sets a statement.
You know what I thought when I first saw that at a wedding I was officiating? It reminded me of the years and years ago when the couple would carve their initials on a tree. And I thought it's something like that, only
Right.
it's carving their initials with light.
Right.
We only have about a little bit more than a minute left, and I want a quick question about the photo booth. Give me a couple little tips to share with couples.
First thing, just beware of the costs. Make sure that you ask the photo people how much product you're going to get. If it comes with any props, that's generally important.
Oh,
How many pictures that you get per person,
Yeah.
how big the booth is, and finally, do you get a copy of all the pictures on a DVD, something for you to take home and use for yourself.
good. That's a lot to think about.
Yep.
Last question I want to ask you, Bob, and to me it's a big one. After you do a wedding
Right.
and the couple writes back,
Right.
what do they rave about?
One is getting to talk to the owner at the all time. Someone that
Good
cares,
idea.
that holds their hand through the whole process. That we always answer their calls or emails promptly right away, so they feel that there's someone there that they can really trust. Keeping the music at appropriate volume at all times, so people aren't screaming at each other because this is a family day. And just making sure we get a lot of compliments that we keep everybody on the dance floor the entire time, knowing how to read the crowd,
Yeah.
and playing a mix of music to keep all ages on the dance floor.
Bob, that is great, and I look forward to working with you. This is going to be wonderful. Thanks very much for being on this
Thanks
show,
for having me.
and for going through a lot of information, sharing a lot with us. I also want to thank my crew, and I want to thank you in the viewing audience. They say about love makes the world go round, so go out there and spin, and join us again next time. Thank you.
Are you planning a wedding or renewing your vows? Let today's leading wedding vendors inspire and guide you. To learn about upcoming guests and join the discussion, like us on Facebook, Zita TV. Weddings with Zita is a program of Moon River Rituals. For more information, visit zitatv.com.